Welcome to the Viking Spotlight, a podcast about people, events, and projects in the North Canton City School District. I'm your host, Jeff Wendorf. This year's Boston Marathon will be held Monday, April 18th, and today we're welcome two individuals who qualified for the race, and they just happen to be teachers in North Canton City Schools. Both will be running the Boston Marathon for the first time. Welcome to Emily Shaub and Taylor Sowers.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks.
Yeah, welcome. We're glad you joined us. Emily's in her first year as a science teacher at Hoover High School, a resident of North Canton. Emily taught at Marlington local schools for 10 years before coming here. She's also a general chemistry teacher. She teaches in the general chemistry lab at Mount Union, the University of Mount Union. Mr. Sowers is an 8th grade science teacher at North Canton Middle School. He's been with the district since 2014 and has started teaching at Jackson Milton local schools in science and coaching cross country and track in 2012. He moved to Stark County after marrying Sarah Snyder, a Hoover grad from the class of 2007. Welcome to both of you. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks.
Emily, in the short time and in the short bio that you shared with us, you in preparation for today, you said you ran cross country and track in high school and ran for fun in college. You did tell us something that caught us off guard. You ran for fun after college, and your goal for your first marathon was just to finish. You not only finished, but you qualified for the Boston Marathon. So that was your first marathon.
Yeah.
Then you qualified. Wow.
Yep.
That's amazing. Can you tell us about your first marathon?
Sure, yeah. So I really took a break from running. I was just doing a couple miles a day here or there in college. And then, funny enough, the principal at the time at my first teaching job asked me in front of my students, hey, we have somebody that's sick. Do you think you could run in part of the Akron Marathon relay leg? And so I was like, sure, I could do 5 miles. Why not? And then from there it sparked, maybe I could do a half marathon. And then after I did the half, I said, I would never do a marathon. I said, after that halfway point, there is no way you could get me to do that whole thing again. And then lo and behold, I started training. I actually kind of met up with Taylor, and I was like, oh, maybe I can do this. So, my goal was just to finish. And when I was looking at my pace and my time, then I thought, man, I think I could actually get this Boston qualifying time, which I never would have thought possible, but it was pretty exciting.
That's awesome. Congratulations.
Thanks.
What is the qualifying time for women's?
So when I ran it for my first marathon, it was a 3:35. So I ran a 3:31, but then was it just that next year? They then shortened it and they shaved 5 minutes after. So now the qualifying time for me in my age bracket is a 3 hour, 30-minute time. Yep.
26.2 miles.
Sure
correct?
is, yep.
I don't like to drive 26.2 miles.
Neither do we.
You'd rather run, right?
Yeah.
Congratulations. That's awesome. Taylor, you also ran in high school and qualified for state 3 times.
Yes.
You were a 2-time All-Ohioan in your high school and won the state track meet in 2004. That's awesome. That's very impressive. What contributed to the success you had in high school?
So one of the things that we really instilled, I guess, from a young standpoint is we really just enjoyed running. And our coach his biggest philosophy was, I want you to enjoy it and I want you to get something out of it, help others, and just really enjoy what you're doing. And he took us on trail runs, on roads, country roads, you name it, we ran it. And for me, it was just a matter of just finding something that you enjoy and having fun while doing it. And lucky for us, we ended up winning quite a few races. So there was always joy in that as well.
That's awesome. That's cool. Have you used that experience in coaching and so on in North Canton and some other areas? Or
I my first year here, I joined up with Ryan Kinzel, and we both took over the 6th grade running club from Jeff Gantz, who was kind of helping coach out and actually runs with Emily and I from time to time. And so he was just looking for somebody to help him out and get to know some of the kids, and I was willing to do it. And so after that year that we did that, I noticed that there were quite a few kids that were in the program, and there was a middle school cross country job that opened up, and I figured why not take the chance? Yep. So for me, it was just something that was kind of important for me to do. And at the time I really enjoyed it. And then I had a son, and I mean, time changes a little things.
Family commitments change, don't they?
Yeah. So we, I enjoyed my coaching time that I was doing it, and now I'm still enjoying running in general.
Good. Now in college, Mount Union, you ran different races. You weren't a distance runner in college, or were you?
So I ran my freshman year, and that was it. I ran the first semester of running. So I did cross country, but I never did track. And I actually went home over Christmas break, and I told my dad, I don't think running is right for me. I want to do some other things, and I want to focus on school. And he understood. He understood everything that I really wanted to do. And so for Christmas, he actually got me a present, and the present was to run the Cleveland Marathon. And so I'm like, well,
Dad,
time
you
to do
didn't
it.
hear me.
Yep, time to do it. So it was good. He got to run it with me, not physically, but he was in the same race as me. And so I got to experience a lot of the first time marathon things.
Yeah, that's very cool. Well, you and I may have shared in running experience. I didn't run either in that one. I remember my daughter ran at a Hall of Fame marathon at one time. Mm-hmm. She ran the half, but I was there at the starting line, and it was starting in the front of the stadium and going up the hill.
Oh, yeah.
And I remember seeing you there, and I was at North Canton. That is probably 5-6 years ago, and saw you, and you were with all the fast guys out front. Just took off like a bolt. So
yeah,
that's awesome.
I tend to do that from time to time.
That's as close as I got to a marathon.
Well, we're glad to see you there. So anytime you want to come on out.
I've done the Cleveland or the Akron in legs, but not the long parts. I'm not of marathon stature, that's for sure. Emily, how do you go about training for a marathon in Ohio? I mean, it's cold. It's now April. We've had snow just in the last week. And how do you train, and what's that have to do with your training cycle?
So training usually looks for a full marathon for me about 16 to 18 weeks. And so training started around Christmas time in December. So obviously in Ohio, especially our winter that we've had, it's getting used to running in all the elements, because when it comes to race day, I mean, it could be anything from hot and sunny to cold and windy and rainy. So unless it's icy or something super below zero outside, I dress right for it, and I get outside and run. I will, from time to time, run on a treadmill just to keep a specific pace, or if I have something that I'm trying to shoot for. But I just pack for all different occasions, and I just get out there and do it.
Yeah, that's awesome. So unfortunately, when there is snow and slush, the running lane isn't very wide on some of our roads and streets, is it? And that's hard. Yeah, good. Do you, and not to get too technical, but what's your longest in a typical cycle of your 18-week or so training cycle for both of you? What's your longest? How you don't run 26 miles every week? What's your longest runs for your training cycle as you get up to the end?
For me, mine was 18. Some people, Taylor, what do you get to?
Normally I get up to 22, but this year I just did 20.
Yeah.
So,
wow. Interesting stuff.
Yeah.
Cool. Scientifically speaking, we're both science teachers, so they say to never, it's a certain time limit, because after you get past that threshold, then you're not doing your body any additional fitness. Okay. So you just, whatever your pace is, you just don't want to go for over that amount of time. Understand.
Okay. How about Taylor, on your is yours similar to hers then? You're going to do a routine for 18 weeks or so?
So I usually I actually am coached by somebody that I went to high school with, and he usually writes me a training plan for anywhere between 14 and 16 weeks. I like to think that mine's a little bit more intense, I would say. I generally like to get up to about 80 to sometimes 90 miles a week.
Wow.
And I usually do that early in the morning before school starts, because I don't really have the time after school. So it's not uncommon for me to usually text Emily later in the evening and say, hey, I got a 14-mile run to do in the morning. Would you like to bike or run with me on part of it? Most times she says that's too early. So
no, thank you.
I'll do some early runs, but not
all of them, but that's okay.
Yeah.
And teachers usually arrive 7 o'clock or so.
Yeah.
So you're out at least 5 probably.
No, I usually start about 3:45 in the morning.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. So
who's up at 3:45?
No one. It's great.
Sometimes I am. Sometimes I go.
But it's great. I mean, I don't advertise this a lot, but you could physically run down the middle of the road if you wanted to.
Right.
There are a lot of country roads that I take, and I've counted on my hand a few times that I've seen cars. It's kind of nice, kind of peaceful.
Good reflective gear though, right?
Yeah, I got a headlight that's brighter than most. So if you're listening to this podcast and you see a very bright headlamp, it's probably me.
There you go. Good, good. Well, you run, Taylor, you told us that you've run 12 half marathons and 21 marathons, 14 50Ks.
Yes.
So 50K is
31 miles.
31 miles.
Yeah.
Wow. That kind of a 50-mile race as well, right?
Yes.
And
just
a 50-mile.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. How long does that take?
So I did that once. I've actually also trained for a 100-mile race, but I never actually made it to the starting line. But the 50-mile race, to give everybody kind of an idea, you start at Willoughby Hills, where Squires Castle is, and you run on the Buckeye Trail all the way down to Stanford House. So of you that do ski club, it's about a mile away from where the ski club actually is skiing, which would be Brandywine and Boston Mills Resort. So that took me 11 hours and 56 minutes to run from there to the ending spot.
12 hours. Most people don't sleep for 12 hours, let alone run. That's incredible. And you just get in your zone and
just go.
Curious. Either of you wear headphones or listen to music?
I do, or I listen to audiobooks or podcasts. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And I usually listen to music in the wintertime, but not in the summertime.
Yeah. Very cool. Very cool. Both of you will be running the Boston Marathon for the first time. How do you know what to expect on the morning of race? That's a lot of people and out of state. And what do you expect?
I'll let you go first on that one.
So I like to do my research. So I've read lots of different blogs. We have a couple different friends who have run it before. So kind of getting their take, their advice over what they've done in the past that seemed to work. Kind of just the feel for how it's going to get traveling to the starting line. This is going to be an interesting race in the fact that it's a point-to-point race. So we're going to load a bus. They're going to drive us 26.2 miles away from the finish line. And then we start and run back to where we came from.
Got it.
So
that's not typical history for Boston Marathon, is it? Or is it?
Yes, that's how the Boston Marathon is. Okay. But most races around here, and the ones that I've experienced at least, are usually loop course or something like that.
Or nearby. Yeah.
And I'm kind of the opposite. I'm just a go with the flow type person. I'm going to get on a bus at 6:45, and wherever they take me is where I'm going to go. I'm just going to run back.
Yeah, there you go.
So,
yep.
That's neat. That's neat. And I suppose you've both talked to people that have run it and participated. What's the biggest race you guys have run in? I mean, Cleveland Marathon. How many? I mean, local. Have you gone far away for marathons?
I've only done 4, and 2. One was virtual Boston. 2 of them were the Hall of Fame, so local. Mm-hmm. My furthest and probably biggest marathon was Columbus.
Yeah.
So this will by far be the biggest in terms of spectators, number of participants, everything like that.
I've heard the Columbus is a good marathon. Fairly flat, typically good weather.
Yeah, it was perfect for me.
Good, good. Well, you're both science teachers. How does the experience of running in the Boston Marathon relate to your classes?
So for me, I guess Emily and I can both attest to this. I teach an 8th grade science class that is also in line with the 9th grade curriculum. And so a lot of things we talk about are speed and velocity. So when you look at the content of what we teach, it's very similar to what we as runners kind of look at. But just, I think anything science related, bio related is kind of important. And there's nothing specific that runners do that I think can be aligned to anything science related. Right. But, everything we do is pretty much driven by a schedule, I would say.
Yeah. And when I've even talked to my students too, it's definitely very science related in terms of students have asked me, Mrs. Shaub, are you going to eat while you run? And so I have to talk about nutrition and carbohydrates and about how you lose electrolytes and you have to keep replenishing those. So talking about that and then just kind of getting the grasp on how long 26.2 miles really is too.
Yeah. That's 3 hours, 3.5 hours, or for Pete's sakes, a 50 miler for 12 hours. Let's see, I'd be really worried about eating.
Yeah.
A lot of my students have actually asked me about going to the bathroom while running. They don't really grasp the idea of eating. It's, well, what do you do if you have to go to the bathroom? And I'm like, well, you just find a spot and go.
Yeah.
In a porta potty.
Strategic porta potties, right? And
That's
hope they're
right.
all open. Yeah, yeah. That's an interesting part at races and runs, and done some 5Ks, but nothing more than that. But it's always an interesting time around the porta johns, especially pre-race.
Yeah.
So yeah, well, good. Well, I'm sure you've talked to students about running the marathon. What kinds of questions have they asked you besides the food and the porta john? Anything?
They usually ask me, a lot of students ask me how far that I've run in the morning. That's usually the common question. Like they'll notice if I come into school one day and I look a little bit sleepy, they're like, how far did you go this morning? And then I, put my head down like I'm somebody in trouble and say, I did 14 this morning, and, kind of go on about my day. But they really do bring the energy back into me. And once I start teaching, it's like I haven't missed a beat. I'm just ready to go. And I definitely enjoy it.
Yeah, great.
I'd say my students, especially this week, have asked, Mrs. Shaub, are you going to win?
Yeah.
Well, I will win if I finish that line and I've run my best race. There's just even educating them about there's a whole elite field and professionals, and kind of just letting them know all about that.
Right. And competing against yourself, right?
That's right.
Trying to better your time.
That's right.
Personal best, right? Yeah. Well, there's going to be a lot of people following you and your race and so on. And I know that the bibs have a chip in them attached to your file and identifies you as a runner. Will we be able to track you in real time?
You will. I actually sent a link, and it will be somewhere there for you to find.
Okay.
And you can actually type in Shaub or Sowers, and then you should be able to track us in real time.
Great. We'll put the information in our show notes and have that and for links and so on. That'll be awesome. Well, thanks for joining us today. Anything else you want to share about the experience or teaching and learning at North Canton, or your experience as a runner and how that's affected your teaching? Or
I think it'd be cool to have Emily say what her goal time is for the race on Monday. I think we should put that out there.
Thanks, Taylor.
You're welcome.
Yeah, so I mean, I would be happy to just requalify for Boston at Boston, but just like anything, I have an A, B, and C goal, but my ultimate goal would be to break 320. That would be my personal best. Yeah. But as long as I requalify and have a strong race, that would be the best. What about you, Taylor? What's your goal time?
So I have a goal that I've told my wife. I have a goal that I want to run Boston. I want to run it hard, but I'm not sure that I have a desire to go back. And so I'm going to take it as this is my only opportunity to run it. So my goal is to run about a 250 would be what I'm happy with. So
that's best of luck to both of you. Do you have any other big marathons that you have aspirations to do? Like, hey, I'd like to do the New York or any others. And just Boston's the biggie. I know that's the big one. Any others that you'd be interested in?
In the ideal world, eventually, in one side of me always says, like, I'm going to be done with marathon soon, because it's just hard on joints in the body and everything else for me personally. But part of me, it is one of the seven world majors.
It is, yes.
So it would be cool to run in every one of those world majors as like a big bucket list item.
Sure.
For me, I've done some of the ones that I've wanted to do. I've done the Houston Marathon, which had about 20,000 people in it. But I've also done the local ones, and I actually prefer the local ones because I can sleep in my own bed and I can eat my own food. I don't know if there's ever one that comes about that I want to do. I'm just going to sign up and go do it.
Great.
This past year was the first year I did the Akron Marathon, and that definitely beat me up quite a bit because it was pretty hilly, but we'll see what happens after Boston.
Yeah, great. Well, we wish you both the best of luck. Hope you're safe, injury-free, and I'm
Thanks.
sure you'll represent yourselves in your personal best and your families and North Canton in high fashion. So wish you the best, and thanks for joining us today, and good luck at the Boston Marathon.
Thank you.
We thank our listeners for joining us today on a podcast, and next week we'll be talking to Christine Farina about the new soon-to-open adaptive playground at Dogwood Park. It's a neat thing. They're nearly done. I know they're still working on it this week, but if you have any questions about our podcast or want to suggest a topic for us to cover or have questions, suggestions, please email us at vikingspotlight@northcantonschools.org. Appreciate all our listeners, and you can find us on YouTube and Spotify and anywhere else we post this podcast. But thank you both. Best of luck. Go Vikings.
Thank you.